The Will Cain Show begins in 2 minutes. The Will Cain Show begins in 1 minute.
One, I'm just tired. I'm tired of waking up every day and reading about how some mainstream media figure that for 5 or 6 years had their heads buried in the sand has now had some revelation about the lawfare or cover-up of Joe Biden's incapacities. Why do we give them credit? Granted, it's interesting, but why do we give them credit for being cowards? 2, is the Trump administration's tariff regime over, blown up in a federal court, paused, or, as is analyzed by Goldman Sachs, a big nothing burger? With the host of The Big Ben Show, Ben Domenech. 3, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino say the news on January 6th will be shocking, but it wasn't when it came to Jeffrey Epstein. We break it down with Dean Cain. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page. If you're watching, as you should every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, go over and hit subscribe to either the Fox News channel YouTube page, or there is a Will Cain Show YouTube page. You set a reminder, and that way, should you be bumping around in your house or at work at about 11 Central, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific, and you forgot, the boys are about to stream, that reminder will ding you and say it's time for the Will Cain Show. But if it just doesn't fit your schedule that day, you're listening to us on terrestrial radio, head on over to Apple or Spotify, and then you can hang out with us whenever and however you like on demand at Apple or on Spotify. We got a big show for you today with Dean Cain and Ben Domenech, the host of the newly launched Big Ben Show here at Fox News Audio. I want to get to a lot of that here today, but I just want to say good morning. Good morning, fellas. Good morning, Tinfoil. Good morning, two-a-days.
Fired up.
Morning.
It still feels
morning, Big Will.
Like morning to me. Yeah, but how does it feel? Is it wrong for me to say good morning? I mean, it's noon Eastern time.
It's lunchtime.
11
Central.
For you.
It's lunchtime here, up in New York.
It is. And so therefore it still feels like morning to me. You know, I've got my routine. I've set my summer routine. I figure I had to set a good example for the boys that I'm saying summer cannot just be sleeping till 10 and playing Minecraft until 1 a.m. Well, it has to be more. There has to be a self-improvement program. So I've been setting my schedule, and I feel better. You know, once you set that schedule and you kind of like get up and do the things that you need to do, and you get that rhythm. It feels good. What time of day would you say you guys are the smartest? Have you figured that out about yourself yet? Like when you're firing on all cylinders?
12 p.m. when we start the show.
Good for you, two-a-days. I have a feeling at Tinfoil Pats. Yeah, I knew that about you. So I was about to say, I have a feeling you're a night owl. Like you hit your stride at like 12:30 a.m.
Yeah, but the problem is with this show, I have to wake up a lot earlier. So I'm exhausted before I get to nighttime. So I'm all discombobulated.
So it's 14-hour days.
Yeah, it's all off track.
So if left to your own devices to organize your life in its optimal way, Tinfoil, you would sleep till what, 10 a.m. and stay up till 2 a.m.?
Maybe like 9. Yeah, 9.
Sleep till 9 and turn in at what time?
1 to 2.
That's late.
1 to 2.
I couldn't do that.
If you two-a-days, what is if left to your own devices, maybe on vacation or whenever it is, you get to just set the schedule the way you like it. What is it?
Probably go to sleep at midnight, wake up by 7:30, I would say, 7:38. That'd be ideal.
Yep. If left to my own devices, I would be bed at 11, wake up at 7. Yeah. But I back that up because I need to hit the ground running at 6. That's my goal, is to hit the ground running at 6. So try to get in bed at 10 is my goal. Now, I don't hit it. I it's 10:30, 10:45, but that's the goal. And we're all honest sleepers. Like there's a lot of dishonest sleepers out there who either tell themselves that they don't need it or lie about how little they get. Now, that doesn't include everyone, including the President of the United States, and as we've learned recently, Kid Rock, who are more in the 4 to 6 hour range of sleep. That's just not me. I need my 8.
I can't survive on that little. I absolutely need 8. 7 is okay. 6.5 is pushing it, but yeah.
Agreed. I'll get away with 7. 6.5 might set me back for the day. Mm. In the days of Fox and Friends, I got used to the 4 to 5 hour night sleeps, and that was a bummer.
I don't know how you
and that will set you back. And you'll want to lay down in the middle of the day. I will. I'm not the president of the United States. Speaking of the president of the United States, there's a settlement offer on the table from Paramount Global, the parent company of CBS, over fraudulent editing from 60 Minutes. A settlement offer is on the table, and it joins about 4 to 5 now of the president of the United States versus the media. Let's get into it with story number 1. $15 million settlement offer from Paramount Global defamation toward President Donald Trump. I tallied it up. I took a look. There was a $16 million settlement with Disney ABC over George Stephanopoulos' continued defamation multiple times during one program of whether or not he was guilty of sexual assault. Meta settled for $25 million for kicking President Trump off their platforms. And X similarly settled for $10 million. And it got me thinking. And I'm not going to remember the name of the individual, but it was a New York City public official who, in a defamation suit, asked at the end, where is the office where I go to get my reputation back? $65-70 million in defamation settlements don't begin to restore the reputation of President Donald Trump. You know, I find myself today, as I do every day, waking up and reading the news, and Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson from Axios are in the news every day with new revelations from their book or new statements they've made on their press tour promoting their book about what went down when it came to covering up the incapacity of Joe Biden. And it's just, it's interesting. It's curious. We all, that came out. Oh, that feels like an admission. But it's grown to the point that I'm completely exhausted by it and quite honestly, infuriated by it. And when I woke up to see what Jake Tapper from CNN had to say on the Stephen A. Smith show, it was simply now a bridge too far.
I look at the way I covered, the president, some of the trials of the president, I thought were, I think it is problematic when people run for prosecutor and promise to go after a specific politician. And both Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, and Alvin Bragg, the District Attorney of New York, both of them did that. And that, to me, is problematic because you're not saying this is the offense and we need to bring justice to this perpetrator. You're saying, I'm going to go after him. And I think that there was a degree to which that was tolerated by the media writ large. I mean, I did note it at the time.
Was it problematic for you in 2022, in 2023, in 2024? I don't remember you noting it at the time. I remember breathless coverage of the lawfare against Donald Trump, the presumptions of guilt, not just at CNN, but everywhere. And I just can't accept, certainly, a public apology tour at this point in promotion of a book. And I certainly can't accept the revelationary tone of all of this. And I'm going to tell you something, even from Stephen A. Smith, who's the interviewer in that particular clip. See, there's this thing that has gone on, and it's not limited to stories about Joe Biden. In fact, former host of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, is doing something similar now. Perhaps to a much lesser degree, but doing something similar when it comes to analyzing why Democrats have fallen out with, for example, men.
They're having to use anthropologists to figure out how to appeal to young white men. How do we talk to this strange and breed of American citizen that we've never wanted their vote before, but now we do? Hillary Clinton was doing a rally, and it was like, I'm going to be the president for African Americans and Latino Americans. And she just went down the list, right? You just pick your identity group, and she went down, young American, da, 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 da. And my staffer goes, well, she doesn't want my vote. She didn't ask for my vote. I mean, he's a white male.
Yeah.
She didn't ask for any man. The only, and so it was just sitting there going, and now you're like, oh, we've got a problem. Well, you spent 15 years essentially ignoring that vote. And in fact, not only ignoring it, interest groups going out of their way to marginalize.
Yeah, but so did you, Chuck Todd. You're one of those interest groups. The media is a partner in this entire, I don't know, it's not a conspiracy, this entire propaganda machine. And you participated in it for a decade on that note, on marginalizing young white men, any white man, any man. And I can't accept that we wake up here today and you have had some revelation and you have some insight that, yeah, it is infuriating for the rest of us to have been reporting this stuff. Common sense. And by the way, forget it. It's not about me. It's not about Fox. It's not about those of us that did. It's also the American people who saw and responded. And now you wake up and you have some interesting analysis on it. When I was at ESPN, one of the things that I learned, I really did, in being, and I loved my time at ESPN. I always say that, not as a throat clearing, because I truly did. And I loved most of my colleagues. I really did. Including those who looked me in the eye and told me they had deep disagreement with me on something. And even those that kind of came at me hard, I bear no anger on that. But I learned a lot. And, before joining Fox, I was always swimming in those waters. I was at CNN. I was at ESPN. I was surrounded by people that disagree with me. And I was surrounded with people that did media a certain way. And here's one of the things that I learned. It is true that much of the media is absolute pure partisanship, hackery. But what is also true, and maybe even more pronounced, is that most of the media is absolutely cowardly, spineless. Here's what I mean. Okay, I'll always remember, like, shows on ESPN at times, whenever an athlete would, punch his girlfriend or something like that, we would all talk about it. But there were certain personalities and shows that would climb to the top of Mount Easy Take pound the table about how abhorrent domestic violence is. And I remember thinking, like, but who are you talking to? Like, is there someone else here that is the voice of opposition? Is there someone here who is pro-domestic violence? Is there someone anywhere? Is there someone listening, an audience member, who was, considering beating their spouse and listened to an ESPN sports radio show and thought, man, they're right. I should stop. It's just, it was easy. And you pound the table and you climb to the top and you become the loudest voice in the room for something that everyone believes. Now, here's where this applies to Tapper and Todd and the mainstream media. For the past decade, the idea that Donald Trump is a would-be authoritarian, a criminal, is the easy mainstream take. It's what will, yes, at times get you high fives, but never get you side eyes in their environment. It never will. So it's, you swim out to the middle of the river where the main current is flowing and you float along and act like you're a fast swimmer. That's what they're all doing. And then once you're in that vein, once you're in that channel, then the only race is to see who can say it the most impassioned, who can say it the most inflammatory. You're in safe waters, so just go all the way. And then it's a competition. And that's how, there's also a lot of stupidity baked in as well. But I do believe that's a big part of how someone like, Sonny Hostin or Don Lemon ends up saying ridiculous, incredibly absurd things because they're swimming in safe waters. And the only competition now is to take the safe thing and pound the table the hardest, right? The same thing I described in sports, but now you're talking about in politics. And what I'm getting at here and what I'm telling you is the driving motivational force there is cowardice. It's first to fit in and then to slightly stand out from everyone else you're fitting in with. And the hard thing to do is to critically think and be independent and be brave and tell the truth. And that's why yesterday when we have Bobby Burack from Outkick on talking about the WNBA and Caitlin Clark and Brittany Griner, not only do I have to give Bobby credit, but in a way he inspires me to do what I think I've done in the past, which is no matter how exhausting all these topics are, don't let the main flow of the channel dictate what you talk about. Your job is to critically analyze and tell the truth. Here's Bobby Burack.
Will Compton, Jamel Hill, Keith Olbermann, Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo, they're all coming after me or Clay or Whitlock. It's one of the three of us. And it's no different than what happened 5 years ago when you were just getting ready to come to Fox and people were coming after you over the Bubba Wallace thing. Because what does that do? It's a deflection, and it's also a way to get in that quote-unquote cool kids club, right? Will Compton has been getting crushed by those cool kids for almost 6 months for interviewing Donald Trump. So this is his way of showing everybody, no, I'm one of the good guys. I'm going after Burack. I'm going after Clay. I'm going after Whitlock.
It's really, it makes you unpopular. It makes you the thorn in everyone's side. You're not going along to get along, but you are independently correcting the record, asking for accountability, and telling the truth. And for the past, certainly 5 to 6 years, really a decade, when it comes to Donald Trump, you heard all the things that you're now hearing from Chuck Todd and Jake Tapper. But those things were tossed away as propaganda, conspiracy, irresponsible journalism. You don't get to wake up 6 years later and act like you are the person doing responsible journalism when you're 6 years late. And I mentioned Stephen A. earlier. I also would say the same, and I would say it. And that's the nature of our relationship. And I have said it, actually, when it comes to a lot of the The race stuff, we did his show this almost a year ago, last summer, and I remember we talked about last. I said, Stephen A., like, yeah, you're sitting here today going, whoa, this woke stuff, it went completely too far, but you were doing it with me. I remember we were debating, and I don't understand the credit that is afforded everyone for being 5 to 6 years late, and not just being late, but being an active participant in the falsehood for the previous 5 to 6 years. And I get it. Christopher Hitchens famously said, if Christopher Hitchens said, if I wake up one day and say, noted atheist Christopher Hitchens, I don't believe in God, no one cares. No one listens. But if the Pope wakes up tomorrow and goes, I don't think this God thing is actually real, then it's like, whoa, the Pope all of a sudden is saying that. So it's notable that Jake Tapper or Chuck Todd are telling the truth. It's notable. And there are nuggets. But it's also infuriating that there's some level of credit that is afforded everyone who is 6 years late out of cowardice and participating in the falsehood for 5 to 6 years. And it should inspires me to not, I'm not ever going along with the flow to be popular, but I got exhausted. I get exhausted on the WNBA, the Brittany Griner, the Caitlin. But you have to do that. And you know what will happen? Most likely, the vast majority of them will wake up in 5 to 6 years when the current has shifted and the mainstream of the river is flowing in the right direction, which it is now, thankfully, on some of these stories. But you don't get to swim into the current now and proclaim that you're Michael Phelps. You're floating. You're way behind. And you got here. Not because you have an incredible freestyle. You got here in this place that you are now because of cowardice. All right. Ben Domenech has a newly relaunched show at Fox News Audio, The Big Ben Show. We want to talk to him about the decision that just came down on a judge basically pausing the entire tariff regime of President Donald Trump. That when we come back on The Will Cain Show.
Every hour of every day, Fox News Radio is there with the latest breaking news and information you rely on.
This is a Fox News alert.
I'm Lisa Brady.
I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
With Fox News correspondents around the globe.
At the White House, Simon Owen in London.
On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The news that matters most to you. The top headlines, all in one place. Listen and follow the Fox News Hourly Update at foxnewspodcasts.com or ask your smart speaker to play Fox News.
It's Rachel Campos Duffy. Join me for Fox Noticias, a show that breaks down the news of the day with a focus on the kitchen table issues that matter most to our community. Politics, the economy, immigration, and cultural trends. Weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox Deportes and available at noticias.foxnews.com, the Fox Noticias YouTube page, and Fox Nation. Or listen and follow the podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
I'm Benjamin Hall, Fox News senior correspondent and New York Times best-selling author, and I'm searching for heroes. Every Monday, I'll speak with a few silent but noteworthy heroes, everyday people who illuminate stories of compassion and are true embodiments of heroism. Make sure you subscribe to my podcast, Searching for Heroes with Benjamin Hall, wherever you download podcasts, and please leave a rating and a review.
Angst on the show is palpable, says RB Dotus on YouTube. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hey, hit subscribe at Apple or on Spotify, and always join us here on the Will Cain Show. Joining us now is the host of the Big Ben Show at Fox News Audio. It is Ben Domenech. What's up, Ben?
Hey, Will, it's good to be with you, and I just want to congratulate you. I haven't had the chance to on all your success. It's just been so wonderful and gratifying to see everything you've been able to do, both with this show, but also on the network. I've gotten to watch, several of your recent episodes, and you're just killing it out there, man. So it's good to be with you.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. I really appreciate it. We killed it on Tuesday. Our demo ratings came in like fourth or fifth.
Showing how it's done, man. Really.
No, we're excited. I'm humbled, and I think we all are to receive this type of welcome from the audience. And so
I think you hit a nerve, and I think that the reason is, and we know each other. We've known each other for a long time, but I think that one of the real things that people appreciate about it is authenticity to your views and to your perspective on things. You've had great rosters of guests and stuff like that, but I think it's really about, in this age, and just listening to your monologue just now, I think people really do prize authenticity, and the viewer is smarter than people seem to think. They can tell when they're being lied to, and when people are putting on a facade, when they're pretending that things are true that aren't. I think that's one of the big reasons why Jake Tapper should get no credit for this whole, rebuilding his perspective in Washington and things like that tour, where he's pretending. I mean, it's ridiculous. You don't get credit for these things when you were faking people out for so long on what was really going on. And that, to me, is just, it's really important to hold people to account on that kind of thing.
So, and the thing about this, Ben, I'm sure you feel the same way. So for the audience, we are talking about when I wake up. When I wake up, I try to go to the gym, and then I come back. And it's really my favorite time of the day. After I go to the gym, I come back, and I have coffee, and I read in. And then I have my first Lucy packet right after my coffee, which that's honestly when my brain is firing. But I read in everywhere. But we get these notes at Fox, and I love them. It's like a huge compilation of stories, and it's a small blurb on every story. So you can kind of get a quick overview by reading through. I get about 2 emails, one for the Will Cain Show. There's another one that's incredible from Fox and Friends. And but I see in the notes like all these things like Bill Maher said this, or Stephen A. Smith said that, or and I like it and I get it. And I like, by the way, I like both of those guys. I like Stephen A. and I like Bill Maher. But after a while, sometimes I'm like, but they're saying things that the rest of us have said for 10 years, right? And either it's something that wasn't heard when we said it, or it was conspiratorial, or it was irresponsible. And now that they say it, it's like, oh, now it's real.
Yeah, those lanes are artificially created. And I think that it's something that is really bad about the state of media today. I think it's actually one of the reasons why Kamala Harris lost and why people were surprised at her losing. One of the things that I heard from Mark Halperin the other day, he came on my show, was he said that there were people who were on there who said, I understand why Trump is winning this time in a way that I didn't before, because I've heard the voices of other people about why they were supporting him or about what was going on in the American Midwest, et cetera. And the truth is that when those things come across from Bill Maher and Stephen A., I haven't had the honor to be on with Stephen A. the way that you have, but I've been on with Bill. It's like only now can these things be said. Only now are they permittable. And look, I think that that's something that's wrong fundamentally with the media in a way that hurts the left more than it does the right, because we are automatically exposed to what they think, but they aren't automatically exposed to what other Americans think who support the president or who support, independent thinking or free speech or the like. And that's something that I think is really damaging to the way that we even get along as Americans.
I've got some things I want to talk to you about today, sort of, produced topics I intend to talk about, but I also just kind of want to have a conversation. I'm listening to you talk. You're interesting, Ben, in that I would put you in a category of people that is not unlike Megyn Kelly, in that, which I think is a great compliment, in that.
Thank you. I take it as one.
You have a complicated relationship with how you felt about Trump at times, and you've been not shy about saying where you disagree with Trump, which I appreciate. That it shows a level of independence. But also, I know part of that is he attacked John McCain. You're married to John McCain's daughter. There's a lot of personal stuff in there, right? But And you tell me what you think. Have you been able to separate yourself from the personal stuff into your analysis? Like, so Megyn Kelly was also, Trump came after Megyn Kelly, right? Mm-hmm. And it was bad. And after a while, she seems to have gotten over the personal side of it to be more interested in the actual substance of things going on in the country. And now she's a big fan, I think it's fair to say, of the Trump administration. And you kind of have that element too. And maybe a lot of people do. While it might not be personal to them, they didn't like something about Donald Trump, but then over time they see the bigger picture or how it plays out. Has that been a part of like your I don't want to use the word struggle or evolution or whatever, your analysis?
So, Will, it's been an interesting relationship, and I will say that I was gratified, just a couple months ago to get invited to go in and interview the president. It was the first magazine interview that he did. We put it out at the Spectator, and people can go and listen to it. There's about an hour of audio on the Spectator YouTube page, but I'll tell you, he talked to me for 90 minutes. So there was a lot of good stuff that we had to leave out because he likes to go, and as I'm sure you've experienced before, he likes to go on record, off record, that kind of stuff. But one of the reasons that I was gratified by it was that it is, I was literally on the National Review cover opposed to him, and that was not, I will remind people, that was not a never Trump cover. It was against him in the context of the Republican primary in 2016, where I did think that he was somebody who really represented a break from a lot of things that I value. At the same time, I think that what we've really learned about him as a person and as a leader over the years is that his judgment, I actually think, is a lot clearer than the traditional established judgment that has ruled the roost in Washington for such a long time. Now, that doesn't mean that I agree with him on everything, but it does mean that when he's right, he's right. And you shouldn't have the kind of personal animus prevent you from analyzing him and saying, he's right about this, and the established vision in Washington is wrong. My wife and I were invited to go into the Oval when Tulsi Gabbard was sworn in. She's a good, close friend of ours and has been for several years, even dating back to when she was a Democrat. And I think that, including a lot of people who want to break up the system in Washington has been a huge boon to the country. And I think that it's only going to be something that continues because people are tired of the Washington that they've been getting for generations, that ignored their demands for change, that cast aside any opposite views, and put us, I think, as a country on a really bad track that people wanted to change. They've been demanding change in election after election after election, and that they haven't been getting it. And I think that we see in things like DOJ, the kind of steps, the radical steps that you need to take in order to affect any kind of change in a situation in Washington where the bureaucracy believes that they are the ones who actually have the power, the enduring power. And so, look, what I'll say about this is the president has never been anything but cordial with me. And when I've interviewed him, we've busted each other's balls a little bit, and he appreciates that. I think similarly to Bill Maher, he has a perspective on him where he said, when he brought out the criticisms of him and sort of got to throw it back in his face a little bit. But, the president has been, nothing but, I think, open with me and authentic about his views on all these things.
Was it hard? Is it hard? But was it hard? Is it hard to get past whatever personal stuff existed? And by the way, it's not just you. Like, we brought up Megyn, but, I don't know what the relationship is between Trump and DeSantis or Trump and Casey DeSantis, but I don't get the feeling that personal stuff is ever set aside. You and I have other mutual friends in the conservative commentariat who have been subjected to Donald Trump's wrath, and I don't think they've ever been able to get past the personal stuff. And, he's never attacked me personally, and I don't know why he would. So I have to have a level of humility in saying, hey, come on, get beyond it, start looking at the bigger picture. Yeah. But I do think it is the right thing to do. I actually do think it's the right thing to do to get beyond the personal stuff.
I mean, I care about the country, Will, and I think that our priority is always what's good for the country, and I think that we know the kind of direction that we were headed with an administration that was as out of control as this prior one. But one thing I will say about the personal stuff, I'm just not one to hold grudges in the world of politics. This is not, this is not dodgeball. This is stuff that's serious. And I think that, you have a situation with, the insults that he directed at my father-in-law that were very personal and that certainly we didn't like and approve of, the, back and forth, flack about those things. But I think that you also have to, withstand that and think about what's right for the country. The other thing that I would just say is, and I've said this before, though, the person with the thickest skin in the world who I have ever met in my life was John McCain. He didn't care about this stuff. And if he called you an a-hole, it was a compliment. It was not a situation where he was someone who minced words. The first time that he went on TV and talked about me, he called me a jerk. And that was a sign that he liked you. Yes, he went on The View, called me a jerk. And so the sort of thing that I'm just saying is, I think that there's a lot of white knighting going on about how dare Donald Trump say this about that person or this about that person. And to be honest, what we care about deep down and what I care about as an American who wants the country to succeed is for good policy, good leadership, strong leadership to be in place that puts us on the right track. And I think that what we see from this administration, especially, I think even more so than the first time around, is a focus on trying to really right the ship and deal with a lot of things at once, by the way, very rapidly in some ways that, has had to move fast and break things, but in a way that needed to happen because of how bad things had gotten for the country.
On that note, and I totally agree with you, this term feels way different than the first term. The first term felt 100%. Like it was pulled into controversy and attack. And this is all offense. This is all vision-based stuff. And again, like you said a moment ago, you can disagree with some of the vision or whatever it may be, but it is a vision-based term as opposed to, a mudslinging fight of a term.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that he said to me, in fact, was, when I showed up in Washington, I didn't know anybody. They tell you you're the president. I felt like my task was to save the country and survive, which he said to other people since then as well. And I think that, this time around, he showed up really with a much greater team of people who have command of what's going on there and have a direction. They have an actual focused direction. And that to me is a huge world of difference.
So one of those big visions, that direction, is about tariffs and the economy. Mm-hmm. And as of today, a judge, a 3-panel judge that handles trade, court system that handles trade, has said the president doesn't have the emergency powers to levy across-the-board tariffs, the 10% tariff regime, and even put a pause, I believe, on the Chinese tariffs, the targeted tariffs. Markets have kind of rallied because markets don't like tariffs. And, the headlines at CNN and such are screaming that this is a big blow to Trump. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs came out with analysis this morning, Ben, that basically analyzed the impact on tariffs of this decision as a big nothing burger. And it laid out a whole host of other legal permissions that Trump has to re-implement these tariffs through a different mechanism than the EO he used. Do you think this is a big moment or a nothing burger when it comes to the decision over tariffs?
I think it's a nothing burger, Will, and I really do. I mean, I looked at that Goldman Sachs analysis. The other thing is that I think one of the things that people need to understand is that the powers the president has when it comes to these emergency economic provisions are very wide. And I really don't think we've seen the courts obviously throw up all sorts of different roadblocks for the decisions that he's made in regard to other things. But tariffs really are an area where the president, by dint of, multiple acts over the course of decades, including stuff that dates back to the 60s and 70s, et cetera, these are areas where the president does have an enormous amount of power. And I think that, whether they have to use a different mechanism or whether this is ultimately something that the Supreme Court looks at, this is, I think, going to ultimately be a nothing burger. And one other thing that I think is important to understand is that tariffs, despite the fact that they are unpopular with Wall Street, and I'm not a big fan of tariffs, I think that they really should only be used to force conversations that other nations don't want to have with us. They are actually quite popular with the American people. And they are one of the reasons, I think, that Trump was elected this time around. I think the border obviously was the biggest issue, but people are more and more have faith in the president on the economy, as we've seen in poll data. And that's something that I think is an issue where the markets reacted, people got scared, some of this stuff got pulled back, new deals are getting done. And really, ultimately, this may end up being a vindication of the approach that he's used to kind of have a reset of our relationship with a number of nations around the world.
This kind of takes us back to the media conversation we were having earlier. The fact that tariffs and Donald Trump's handling of the economy is polling well is the opposite of what you would think in reading, including things like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the reaction of markets, right? Mm-hmm. So the reaction of markets, by the way, are a poll. That's what they are. Short-term fluctuations of markets are a poll. They're just a poll of an identified group of, honestly, Wall Street rich guys. But Main Street polling becomes just as valuable in measuring what the American public thinks of how he's handling the economy. And it's the antithesis of what you would think, again, by consuming CNBC or the Wall Street Journal. You know what's also on that note, Ben, is immigration. I just saw a poll yesterday. I think he's hit an all-time high of approval rating with Latino voters, with Hispanics. Yes. Which you would think, what? Deportations, immigration, border. But all-time high with Hispanics.
Quite honestly, Will, I would like to walk into the offices of the Atlantic or the New Yorker and have them explain that to me. Like, what's your explanation for why this is? Why do you think this is? And of course, the answer is that they approve of his policies. They understand the difference between they understand to tune out the kind of calls of fear mongering around fascism and, putting people into camps and things like that they have been told by so much of the legacy media, when people who are here legally generally don't want people to be here illegally. They don't like the effect that it has on their communities. They don't like the fact that this is something that goes on, the human trafficking element, everything else that we've seen. And to think that Latino voters would be motivated more by racial scaremongering as opposed to accepting the fact that they are Americans and they care about their country, they care about a secure border, and they care about that more than anything that they're being lectured to by the white college-educated elite of the Democratic Party who thinks that they should think differently than they do.
You mentioned earlier the hour you have up on YouTube and other places with the conversation with the president at the Spectator, but you're also relaunching the Ben Domenech podcast now as the Big Ben digital show here at Fox, which includes video. Tell us a little bit about this new relaunch.
So, Will, for a while now, I've wanted to try to do something that, included a wider range of voices and had a little more material to it. The folks at Fox were kind enough to connect me with the team that has been working for many years now on Guy Benson's radio show. We're doing, basically an interview format and then bringing in some of the DC-based Fox folks who, oftentimes, Will, the folks who are in DC, they don't really get to show as much personality as some of the folks who are in New York. We have a great group of folks down here in the Capitol that include Peter Ducey, of course, Jackie Heinrich, Aisha Hasni. Griff Jenkins gets to show off sometimes, but the point is just that, when I sit down with Lucas Tomlinson, we're talking about sports, and the idea that he doesn't ever get to go on air and talk about sports, on our network is something that, I felt like needed to be corrected. And so we've got the show relaunched. People can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else.
There you go. Check out the Big Ben show. Okay. I don't know where you'll go with this. Yesterday on the Will Cain Show at the Fox News Channel, I interviewed Brett Tolman, former federal prosecutor, about this Biden cover-up and the people around Joe Biden. And we are honing in on some names that possibly were the most involved in running the government and covering up Joe Biden's incapacities, which includes Chief of Staff Ron Klain, Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, Jill Biden's Chief of Staff, several others. But I asked because I appreciate that the audience is, and the American people are tired of congressional investigations that go nowhere, that they want a real sense of accountability. So the question is there a crime here? Are there any real charges? And there's a list, and he said yes, by the way. He said yes. And I'm going to give you a couple, Ben. I just want your thoughts on some of this. So this is 18 United States Code, Section 371, conspiracy to defraud the United States. If two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States, or one or more of such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, then it is a crime. There are several others that caught my attention. I've got a list of like more than half a dozen of these things. Hold on, let me just find the one more that I found. Not wire mail fraud, false statements, obstruction of justice, forgery of the United States documents. That's dealing with the auto pen, essentially. Now, all of them sort of require coordination, conspiracy, and all this stuff I understand is very hard to prove, and you're not going to find much judicial precedent. And that's sort of needed. We need to see that it's been done before. But I don't know that we've ever seen this level. We've had presidents who have been incapacitated. That's true. We know that. But this was an active, defrauding the American public of information they needed and questions about who actually was signing the documents and running the government. And I just wonder if there's any real potential criminal accountability.
Well, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be one, but I don't know about the degree to which these things are provable. What I do know is that this is the most incapacitated president that we've had since Woodrow Wilson. And, in a situation where, his wife was effectively running the government for almost a year. The issue to
by the
me
way,
that
Ben,
matters.
You're a historian. You may not be a lawyer, but you're a historian. How was Woodrow Wilson incapacitated?
He had a stroke, and then he had issues that essentially prevented him from being able to fulfill the functions of the presidency. He was essentially housebound and bedbound for most of the last year.
Seems like a case for the 25th Amendment.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And today in today's media landscape, it would have been unavoidable to learn that he was incapacitated. When it comes to this. The concern that I have the most about is related to the auto pen issues, because we have gotten into this landscape where, auto pen was supposed to be something that was used for either de minimis, issues where you're signing stuff that really is not that important, or rare issues where, the president needs to sign something by a certain time and he can't make it back, et cetera. There have been issues in the past where this has come up. But when it comes to Joe Biden's use of it, I think we have legitimate questions about whether the president even knew about this, if he had any kind of awareness of how his signature was being used in the closing months of his presidency. And I think it's incumbent on a lot of these people who have been revealed to be dishonest to the American people to come forward and to prove that he did know what was going on. I think that the burden is on them. We can't just assume that he knew all of this stuff. And, that's not acceptable as a functioning democratic republic. You cannot have that be the case. Can you imagine if Donald Trump woke up one day to find out that his signature was on something that he didn't agree with? I mean, come on, it's absurd. I actually have one of his pens here. Okay. Like if he doesn't get to use this to sign that document, that's one of those things where he's going to have issues with it. And I think that with Biden, how do we know that he knew any of these things were being done, especially in the closing days of his administration, especially as it relates to pardons and commutations and issues along those lines? That's something where the president absolutely needs to know, and he needs to sign off on it himself. And if he doesn't, then they have to be reversed.
All right, check out the Big Ben Show. It's at Fox News Podcast, also on YouTube, and also check out The Spectator. Ben is the editor of The Spectator. Love having him on. We'll get him on soon here at 4 o'clock as well on the Will Cain Show. Thank you so much, Ben Domenech.
Great to be with you.
All right, take care. Dean Cain coming up. We're going to talk to Dean. So Dan Bongino was on Fox and Friends this morning. Kash Patel was on Special Report with Brett Baer last night. They talked about Epstein. They talked about January 6th. We talk about that next with Dean Cain.
From around the world,
Trey Yingst joining us from Tel Aviv, Israel.
To Washington,
I'm Mike Emanuel.
To your own backyard. If a story impacts you or your wallet, we're on it. It's the Fox News Rundown. We give every story the deeper look it deserves with must-listen interviews and smart analysis from the voices you can trust. Start your day with the Fox News Rundown. Listen and follow now at foxnewsrundown.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
It's Rachel Campos Duffy. Join me for Fox Noticias, a show that breaks down the news of the day with a focus on the kitchen table issues that matter most to our community. Politics, the economy, immigration, and cultural trends. Weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox Deportes and available at noticias.foxnews.com, the Fox Noticias YouTube page, and Fox Nation. Or listen and follow the podcast at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
I'm Charles Payne. Listen to my Unstoppable Prosperity podcast so I can get you making money right now. 35 years on Wall Street taught me how to successfully invest in the stock market. In my 4-part series, I'm going to teach you too. Some of Fox Business's finest join me to help tell my story, impart crucial lessons from my Unstoppable Prosperity book, and to give you the tools to achieve your own financial dreams.
Listen anytime, everywhere at foxbusinesspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
When did Tapper start writing this book? That would be interesting to know, says KB on YouTube. Well, we know the answer. He started writing it well into the administration, if what we're told is they started the reporting at that time. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, who just did the Signalgate story, he just chimed in on this cover-up. He said, I don't understand how it's a cover-up. Reporters ask questions and they don't get honest answers, then how are they supposed to report it? The point is, you are capable of common sense and observation as well. You have eyes and ears like the rest of the American public. That's just an excuse to not report things you didn't want to report about Joe Biden. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Dean Cain is writer, producer, director, and star of Little Angels, and he joins us now on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Dean?
My brother from another mother, Mr. Will Cain. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man. Hey, have you ever done, I have tried, have you done like family genealogy, not to see if we're related? Like Cain, where does that, I think sometimes I get that it's Irish. Sometimes I get that it's like Scotch-Irish. Like, do you know where we're from, our people, Dean?
Well, here I know this one exactly. We're on my side of the Cain family. We are from my dad's imagination because my dad changed his name. He was born with a different name, and when he came to Hollywood back in the day from South Dakota, a farm boy from South Dakota, he didn't like his name, so he changed it to Christopher Cain, and then he adopted me, and I became Dean Cain. So we're the first generation Cains, but I'm still feeling tight with you. I still feel like we're
Do you know what I like about that?
Symbiotic.
Though? Your dad's like, I need a good, strong Hollywood name. What is a good, and he picked Cain.
Texan
I love
name.
that.
Good Texas name, baby.
And CAIN, not KANE, like all of our favorite rapper from the 80s, Big Daddy Kane.
Big Daddy.
Dean, I just want to get you in on this. I was just talking to Ben Domenech about this, and it's kind of where I led today. I am a little worked up. I'm just exhausted and tired with this idea that somehow all of these media members, including Jake Tapper, but not exclusively Jake Tapper, have come to this revelation of things that we all knew. Everyone, we all knew for 5, 7, 10 years, because it's not just about Joe Biden. It's on a whole host of things. Oh, now you have revelations about Democrats turning off men. It's like, why do you get credit now for waking up?
They shouldn't get credit now for waking up because it's revisionist history. Ben was a historian, I want to see the Big Ben show, by the way, but he's a historian. I mean, it's clear, it's revisionist history. If you were one of the voices back in the day, which I was, screaming about this stuff, saying stuff, you certainly were. There's so many voices. Those are the people who were right. They were covering up. They were being partisan about the whole thing. And this is a complete sham. And watching Jake Tapper and Alex, whatever his name is, go on this tour, it's incredible. It might as well have been just Fox News, 5 years ago or 3 years ago, saying the exact same thing and the Laura Trump thing where he's just ripping on her and all that stuff. It's just embarrassing. It's stupid. And I think that's why the mainstream media has lost so much of its power and its push.
All right. So Kash Patel last night, Dean, was on Special Report with Brett Baer. And this morning, Dan Bongino, our mutual friend, was on Fox and Friends. They're now leading up the FBI. And they have been talking about some of the cases we've all been talking about for quite some time, including Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is Kash last night with Brett Baer.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that, and it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah.
Dean, this morning, Bongino said on Fox and Friends that he's seen all the evidence, seen it from every angle, and that Epstein killed himself.
Well, there goes that meme. That they just ruined a perfectly good meme with that. Epstein didn't kill himself. If those guys are saying it, I listen. I've been very skeptical in the past, but if those two guys are saying it, I tend to believe it. Of course, there was that confluence of events. The guy's taking a break, camera's not working, all that sort of stuff. And there's this whole veneer of like, we don't know who the clients are, et cetera, et cetera. That's really frustrating for all of us in the public. We all want to know. And I think somebody asked yesterday on X, they were like, if it's Republicans and Democrats that are going to get busted, do you still want them released? Yes. Whoever is doing that stuff, whoever was doing that pedophile ridiculousness, whoever it is, go down and burn them 100%. But I believe if Kash and Dan Bongino are there and they're saying this, then I actually believe it. It's if you said it to me, I'll believe it. Other people, if Jake Tapper said it,
Right. I feel the same way. I know Dan, I think, fairly well. I've met Kash several times. I do not believe they would look at the American public and tell them something that's not true. I still have trouble with that truth, and I have to then analyze myself. Well, is it because? And I have to ask myself: is that because you wanted to believe it, or you went, you don't like the truth? All these things I have to ask myself. But I also think there is a deeper truth to your point about Epstein. Like, okay, you're telling me all the evidence points to the fact that he killed himself, but there's still bigger questions like who was Jeffrey Epstein? What was he doing? How was he enabled? Every step of the way, what was his job? And who else was involved in this entire thing? And I think those are questions that we have to know the truth on.
It's just digging through, they've had years and years to just bury that stuff. It's like me trying to sue Warner Brothers for Lois and Clark residuals. They're buried deep. You can't get in there, and I think those guys are having to dig through layers and layers of just bureaucratic crap and people covering it up and all that stuff. I think it's just going to take a little while, but I truly believe in Kash and I truly believe in Dan Bongino that they want to get to the bottom. If it was you and I, Will, like I know we're going to do the job, but it might take us a minute, and that's frustrating for everybody else sitting out there. And the names that covered it up, I want them all busted. I want to, I burn them all. If you're part of this thing, burn them because it's a corrupt system. What happened there was disgusting. I want the clients' names out. I know I'm not on the list. I ain't worried about that, and I didn't go to any Diddy parties. So put all the lists out there.
Oh, you just said two things that I want to follow up on. So, I haven't dove in on Diddy. And I don't have, meaning I haven't read up and kept up with every element of the case and the testimonies going on and these kind of things. You know, I am a little skeptical sometimes, Dean, of like overcharging from the federal government and phrases and charges that carry with it a certain amount of, I'll give you an example. Bob Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, was busted for human trafficking, right? It went to trial. Charges were ultimately dropped, didn't happen. Why was he busted for human trafficking? Well, because he visited a massage parlor in Florida that specialized, let's be real, in happy endings. We don't know specifically, I don't think, what they may have had video. I can't remember the details. But guilty or innocent of that particular thing, that doesn't amount to human trafficking. It's a different thing. But what everybody thinks in their mind when they think of human trafficking, they don't think that. And I do wonder with Diddy and all of these stories, and again, I'm not fully read in, what was happening there and what happens in Hollywood. Sometimes I see interviews of actors are like, you have no idea how bad and manipulative and indoctrination it is in Hollywood. And then others, I'm like, well, I've read that they've overcharged Diddy. And what you're talking about was freak-offs and ridiculous parties and maybe blackmail on people he took videos of. But it's not the huge Hollywood conspiracy you want it to be. What do you say, Dean?
I would buy that line of thinking 100%, Will. Because, I mean, Hollywood is full of crap, let's be honest. And most of the stuff you get out of there is baloney and you don't know. And people are lying all the time. And we go on shows and talk about this, that, but you don't give the full dirt. You and I sit down and have a drink. I'll tell you different stories than I would tell, on the show. And that's just the way it is. And that's reality. I think there's an element of truth to it. I agree with you about the human trafficking thing with Bob Kraft. That's ridiculous. And they may be overcharging Diddy. I mean, I know that the ridiculousness happens and people will do anything in the Hollywood business to get a leg up or get whatever. And, let's be honest. I mean, actors are all prostitutes anyway. We all show up for money to play some role and do something. So in a sense we are. But the stuff that happened, the Diddy things that I hear and the stuff that goes on, it's like when I was a kid growing up in Malibu, there were a lot of kids who did drugs, but nobody did the drugs around me because they already knew Dean doesn't like that stuff. We just want to have any of that around him. And the same thing I think with those Diddy parties, I don't think that kind of stuff, like those kind of things aren't going to happen around me because it's not going to float. And I'm not exactly a quiet, wilting flower in the corner. I'd be like, what the hell's going on here? You guys are out of your mind, any of that sort of stuff. So I didn't get to hear any of that stuff. I know a lot of the names that are being thrown around there, but I think you're probably right. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably freak-offs and weirdness, and he certainly was abusive to his. I mean, I saw the video in the elevator room, and the man should never act that way, and that just should never happen. And that alone makes me want to smack him. I mean, like that's just wrong. So if that's any indication, there was some bad behavior, but I don't know if it goes to the level they're talking about. I'm going to sit there and watch it, and like everybody else, and just I'll reserve judgment to that. But I do know that I wasn't at any of them on the record.
Yeah, I mean, my suspicion is immorality, probably some criminality as well, but not the huge conspiracy that is probably being built up into. By the way, growing up in Malibu, how is Malibu? Like, I went to Pepperdine, and I keep up. I do talk to the people at Pepperdine. I'm reading stuff like they may not even let houses be built back on the beach and after the fires and everything. Malibu was pretty devastated. We talk about the Palisades, but so was Malibu.
Malibu was horribly devastated. So when you were at Pepperdine, you'd look out of, I don't know how you did any studying ever at Pepperdine because gorgeous campus and everything you're looking out at. But if you're looking out from Pepperdine to the ocean, just to the right, there's a number of houses there. That's where I lived for the last 20 years. And I moved out of there 2 years ago, moved to Las Vegas. But I was right next to campus. I would go run on the track. Pepperdine was part of my everyday life, even though it was, it was yours for 4 years or however long it was, 2 years. Was it law school for you?
No, it was 4 years. It was college.
Oh, college. You were in college, Pepper. Okay, good. So just beautiful spot. But Malibu is, my sister's still there. My brother is there. It's completely screwed. It's not Malibu anymore. I don't believe they're going to let people build on the beach anymore. I think they're going to eminent domain that stuff. I think they're going to go for different kind of housing. I think they're just screwed. You look at all this. I mean, I left California for this very reason. The regulations, the policies, they're ridiculous. And it's kind of like when we were all sitting there as a nation under Biden. Just these things that are happening that are so frustrating. And you're like, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense. I didn't vote for this. they're lying to me. I feel like everything's being covered up. That is California. That's Gavin Newsom. That's Mayor Karen Bass. And everybody that I know there is talking about, how impossible it is. All the businesses are going under. There's nobody there. Nobody can come through. My sister lives on the other side of it all, and she goes over the hill to Westlake Village for most of the stuff. Don't even think about going to like Santa Monica and trying to get through that way. Forget it.
I heard
it's just gone, and it's just screwed. My parents' house burned down right on the beach there, and their former house. And I don't think they're going to go up. I think this red tape, I've said it from the beginning, is going to strangle everybody. And all these people who have voted so blue for so long and all these regulations are going to be strangled by their, they're going to be hoisted by their own petard, to borrow a little Shakespeare. So they're getting screwed by what they voted for.
All right. Speaking of Hollywood, tell us about Little Angels. So you have not unlike, I feel like possibly like Kirk Cameron, who I've had on recently. I mean, you've seen an underserved audience here, as we all have, and you've got a new project in Little Angels.
Yeah. So if you know a thing or two about sports, and I know Will Cain knows a thing or two about sports, I'm a sports guy through and through. And so I love anytime I can marry sports and a story together in a movie. So having played football forever and every other sport under the sun, this is a story. It's kind of like Mighty Ducks. I wrote it, I produced it, I directed it, I star in it. If you don't like something about this movie, it's my fault. But it's a story of a guy like a Nick Saban, who just wins the national championship. And during the national championship, they have a girl kicker come in and try to kick an extra point. Game's over. She misses it, doinks it off the upright, and he makes fun of her being, a girl and playing soccer. And this is America, and soccer's for girls. Well, that gets him in trouble, and he gets suspended for the season. Those guys make good $5 million a year, some of those higher level coaches. And so in order to save his job, he has to coach a group of under 13-year-old girl soccer players. And he doesn't like kids, and he doesn't like soccer. And then he goes through and having to coach these girls and runs through a whole gamut of stuff. And of course, there's a love story with one of the moms and a whole thing. And it's just the thing I love about sports and films and teaching things is you learn so much. I always give a big metaphor to football for me. Whenever you start thinking you're something special, some dude comes around the corner and knocks you on your ass. And you go, I'm not so special. And the next time that guy comes around the corner, your teammate cleans them out. And you go, yes, I need to rely on my teammate. I got to do this job. I can't do it by myself. And all those lessons that you learn from sports translate into life. And that's what this movie does. A lot of fun stuff. It's not a faith-based movie, but it's certainly a faith and family-friendly movie. So it's a newer version of Mighty Ducks for girls, and you'll probably get a couple laughs out of it. Hopefully you'll go see it. It's in theaters June 6th. If you don't have it, you want to know where it's playing, go to littleangelsmovie.com and then demand to see it in your area, and that'll get us more theaters. And I'd like that. But I like making this kind of entertainment. I like to make this kind of a project. I'm very proud for people to see it and associate me with it.
Yeah. Imagine. Congratulations, by the way. Little
Thank
Angels.
you.
By the way, harder
another thing is I play a coach,
easier?
and I got to throw this out there. I play a coach.
Yeah.
You've heard coaches. When I see my coach from college, I still call him coach. It's impossibly hard not to. It's a level of respect for that. Like coach. So if my character is Coach Jake in this, and that's all the kids ever called me. Hey coach. And you grow to love it. So if people start calling me coach instead of Superman, I'll take that too.
Coach over Superman. Wow. Harder or easier to make your own movie, like from start to finish, like everything you did here, write, direct, star. I mean, 2025, I would hope that the answer is easier.
Yeah, I'd say easier in that sense, because as a director and writer, producer, you get to make the decisions. Like if something you don't like on this movie, it's my fault. If you don't like the music, I was the guy pushing every little thing, and I did every little bit of it. Every button was my call. I mean, it's a complete team sport, and everybody helped, but I made the final call. I really loved it. It was very comfortable for me to do that. And I really enjoyed creating something that now lives. And that's the great thing about making a movie is now it's this living entity. And hopefully, my niece and my goddaughter play soccer. They were at the time they were 11 and 12 years old when we started shooting the movie. I would go to a weekend tournament and there'd be 5,000 kids playing soccer. and all the parents. So there's 15,000 people out there watching soccer, playing soccer, moving stuff, carrying things. And I thought, man, if I make this movie and a fraction of these people go see this or watch it when it starts streaming, I'm going to do all right.
I'm one of those people. Both of my boys play soccer, by the way. And I used to make fun of soccer. Now I love it, by the way.
I still make fun of it, by the way.
Team,
they'll like this.
To your point on sports, yeah, I love the whole fandom angle of sports. I just do. I love being emotionally invested in something, even if I have no impact on the outcome. I just love it. I don't feel like I have to justify it. Professional, college, whatever. But there's the other side of sports that you're talking about. And this is like when you have kids or whatever it may be. I just don't think there's another better proxy for learning about humanity. And I mean that both internally and externally. So I played an individual sport, mostly swimming, and then I played water polo at Pepperdine. But when you play an individual sport or a team sport, you first have to learn about yourself. Like, where are your limits? How do you push yourself? Can you overcome failure, resilience, all these different things, investment, grit. But then when you deal with other teammates, you're starting to learn about who pushes your buttons, how do you push their buttons, those that you're competing against. It's like the whole thing is a mind game. It's on its surface, it's all physical, yes. But the deep and interesting part of it is your mind and other people's minds, how you impact positively or negatively other people's minds.
100%. If you played, first of all, let me just say, if you played I didn't realize you played water polo at Pepperdine, and I know those.
Well,
so
I
had a lot of respect for you. It just went about up to here, though, buddy. You guys are.
You should know I was a scrub. Before you inflate me too high, I was a scrub into the bench.
You're a scrub with one of the best teams in the country, so you're up there rolling around. They'd be like, yeah, I played for Alabama, but I didn't get much playing time. Bless you and well done. But when you talk about those mind games, it's everything. So if I'm playing opposite you on a football field, you're going to hate me because I'm going to be in your ear. I'm going to be chirping to you in the back. You don't want to reach out to make that catch. You want to have the little alligator arms because I'm going to light you up. And I'm in your head the entire time. And that's what you do. You play those games. But after the game, I'm going to hug you and say, man, you were a tough competitor and this was great. And boy, I had to work hard for this, that. And that's the respect. But it's all a mind game. And we get into that in Little Angels. There's a girl who can't make a penalty kick. And it drives her bananas, and it all comes down to this. So my character brings in Brandi Chastain, who kicked the greatest World Cup ending penalty kick of all time, and ripped off her shirt and got on the cover of that. She came in and did the film with me, and she comes in as a sort of a guest coach for a minute and helped me out with a seminar. But it was awesome, and I wanted the girl, and all my ex-girlfriends are female athletes. I love athletics. I love female athletes. Men and trans men have no business, or trans women would have no business competing in that. I don't even have to get into that, but that's ridiculous to me. Any real athlete will tell you that's insane. And anybody who doesn't is selling something. Like Megan Rapinoe, saying, oh, sure, that's ridiculous. She'd never been on the, that's why they got beat by 15-year-old, Dallas soccer team. It's ridiculous, and men shouldn't be doing that. But this is very, very pro girl sports, very pro family there. And I talk about that. Your team becomes a family. My Princeton teammates from college are still some of all my closest friends in the world. Like if you get like 4 phone calls, 3 of my calls are going to be to guys I played ball with, and the 4th will be to like Tim Kennedy or maybe Secretary Hegseth to get me out of trouble.
Right. All right. He brought up Superman. So the guys on the show here, finally, we're over time, but I want to do this. 2 days, Dan, you're going to run through a little competition here between me and Dean Cain on knowing our superhero. I don't know what this is. It's superhero trivia. What is this? Take it away.
So it's a segment called Caped or Canceled. I'm going to give you an actor and a superhero role, and you're going to tell me if it's a real role they played or if I just made it up.
Are you just trying to cancel me like they tried to cancel me before?
No, absolutely not.
I think there's no expectation that Superman knows all of his superheroes.
That's true.
So you can't be canceled.
Thank you.
All right.
Get it, Stan.
Question 1. Shaquille O'Neal played a steel-armored superhero in the 90s. Is that true or false?
True.
That's true.
That's true. He played Steel in 1997.
Huge Superman fan, by the way, and I don't mean just size.
Yeah.
Loves it.
I know that to be true.
All right, question
Go ahead,
number 2.
Judas.
Al Pacino once played a retired Batman in a 2005 direct-to-DVD spinoff. Al Pacino.
False.
I'm not buying it.
Will?
False.
That's absolutely correct. That did not happen. That was completely made up. Which it would be funny though. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, you got us a direct to DVD. I don't think Al Pacino's done many
Al Pacino direct to
DVDs.
DVD kind of threw that one out. Gave us that one.
Question number 3. Rainn Wilson voiced Lex Luthor in a DC animated film.
Oh, the animated world's going to throw me.
Yeah.
Because and voices, and he's a talented actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say true.
I'm going to say false.
Dean Cain is correct. It was true. Reign of the Supermen in 2019. He voiced Lex Luthor.
You just took that.
I should have
opposite
known
side.
you'd go true, false, back to true. I should have known the format here.
You see, he's got a pattern.
This might be easier because it was recent. Lady Gaga played Harley Quinn in the latest Joker film.
True.
I didn't see it, but I'm going to say true.
That is true. Joker Folie à Deux, Joker 2 with Joaquin Phoenix. She played Harley Quinn. I did not see it myself.
Terrible. Is that true or false?
I heard it was terrible myself, but I haven't seen it.
I heard people walked out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Walked out. That's what I.
And Joker
Have you
1
ever,
was
Dean,
so
have
good.
you ever walked out? I've walked out of one. In my whole life, I walked out one time.
I think I've walked out once. Yeah, I think I was once.
I'll tell you the
I
movie.
wanted to walk out of Batman versus Superman, but I held in there just for the optics.
Yeah, that would have been a statement. Dean Cain walks out of Batman vs. Superman. I walked out of Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Oh, 3.
And the reason well, and that's the thing. You can't have somebody love something and then do that. Like I loved 1 and 2, right? So much. And 3 was so bad, I walked out.
Woo. Yeah, they built it up and then they tore you down.
I know.
That's how I felt
Go
about
ahead,
Batman
Dan.
versus Superman.
All right, 2 more. Ryan Seacrest cameoed as the Flash in a Kia commercial during the Super Bowl. Ryan Seacrest.
I'm gonna let Dean go first. I feel like he's riding my tail on a couple.
Ride your tail. I was saying first. I'm gonna say false.
That's where I was gonna go to. False.
It is false. That never happened, but sounds like it could have happened, though.
It sounds pretty good. You had me on that 'cause I can see Ryan as the Flash.
I think Kia is going to maybe do that commercial now, as we say.
That's the only superhero that Ryan Seacrest can do, by the way. I mean, he's in good shape, but he's not superhero shape. And the Flash is thin, because he's into cardio.
and Ryan's only like yay tall, and you can play Ant-Man. I'm sorry, Ryan. It was a joke on your behalf, Ryan. When you see this,
I met him with American Idol. I can confirm.
Confirmed, can't confirm, but a very nice guy.
2 days was on. Dan here was on American Idol.
I was.
Yep.
Whoa.
The last season was on Fox. Yeah, it was a very interesting time. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've played the clip. It's out there.
I'll tell Seacrest next
Good.
time.
You can sing.
I'd know.
All right, last question. Nicolas Cage played Superman in a movie. Nicolas Cage.
Isn't he also a big Superman fan? He's a
Huge
big fan.
Superman fan, but this is almost a trick question, Will.
That's right.
So I'll let Will answer it first because I know the answer.
I bet you do. He played Superman. What'd you say, Dan? In what?
Did he play Superman in a movie?
Oof, it's a trick question.
Because he's. Well, the answer, I'm going to go true.
Okay. You are going to be correct. They put him in this thing for this reverse, whatever, this whole
Flash.
like come together thing. But he was supposed to play Superman in a movie, and that got canceled. And then I think they put him in this other one. So I'm going to say you're correct and it's true, but I am correct in how it happened. Please tell me yes.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how it happened. He was in The Flash as Superman only because he was supposed to do Tim Burton's Superman, but they
Have you ever
canceled
seen
the
that
movie.
picture?
It's
Him in
fantastic.
the suit with the long hair. You need to see it.
Really?
You need to see it. It's going to stick with you, kind of like Joker 2.
Oh, okay.
It'll
All
stick
right.
with you, but not in a good
I
way.
don't know if that's an endorsement or not. All right. Dean, it's always good to talk to you, man. Thanks for spending time with us. And everybody go check out Little Angels. Appreciate it, bud.
An honor. Thank you, brother.
All right. There he goes. Dean Cain. Again, go check out Little Angels in theaters in June. Request it if it's not at your theater. Always love having Dean Cain on. That's going to do it for us today here at The Will Cain Show. Thanks for hanging out. Subscribe at Apple or Spotify, and we will see you again next time.